Good evening, class. Tonight we discussed how explorers contributed to the spread of Catholicism. Christopher Columbus sailed under Spanish authority into the Caribbean and the Americas. Often, missionary priests would travel with the explorers to evangelize native people. The Spanish established the first Catholic community in North America at St. Augustine, Florida. The Franciscan order of monks were integral in evangelizing the Spanish California coastline, founding 21 missions. This Catholic influence is seen in many California city names like Los Angeles, San Francisco, Cupertino, San Jose, Santa Monica, San Diego, and Sacramento. Spanish missionaries reached as far as the Philippines, evangelizing the native population there. The Jesuit missionary Francis Xavier evangelized throughout India and Japan. French Catholic missionaries were established in Quebec, Canada, all the way down to New Orleans, Louisiana. In 1634, English settlers, who were both Catholic and Protestant, settled in an area they called Mary's Land, today's Maryland. By 1784, these missionaries required greater organization, and Pope Pius VI established the first diocese in America, based out of Baltimore, Maryland. That diocese included all of the 13 original states. He also founded the first Catholic college in America, Georgetown University. In Europe, the Protestant Reformation led to a series of conflicts known as the 30 Years' War, which ended with treaties mandating that the religion of the absolute monarch, the king or queen, would also be the religion of all people living in that country. King Louis XIV was the Catholic absolute monarch of France, who had bishops sign the Gallican Articles, allowing him to rule the church in France as if he were more powerful than even the Pope. Emperor Joseph of Austria abolished monasteries and put the state in charge of seminaries. This age of absolute monarchy lasted for 150 years. During this time period, scientific discovery began to advance. It was discovered that the Earth actually revolved around the Sun, among other discoveries. This seemingly contradicted the creation account in Genesis, leading people to question the authenticity of the Bible. This period became known as the Age of Enlightenment and led to an increasingly popular notion of secularism. Those who believed faith had no place in society, science, or government. Yet, guided by the Holy Spirit, the Church continued to teach the faith and truth of the gospel. The Church did defend herself against secularism brought on by the Age of Enlightenment. For example, the Jesuit order defended the papacy, teaching young men the faith and how to defend it. Monarchs, though, began to see the Jesuits as a threat and threw the Jesuits out of Portugal, France, Spain, and Italy. Before long, the Jesuits were suppressed altogether. Revolution disrupts the Church as well. In France, the French Revolution sees the formation of the National Assembly, which called for liberty, equality, and fraternity. It limited the power of the king, who was closely associated with the Pope, thereby limiting the Church as well. The National Assembly abolished taxes collected for the Church and took control of Church property. The National Assembly forced priests to take an oath upholding the new civil constitution of the clergy. If they refused, they were removed from their posts, forcing allegiance to the civil authority, or remaining in union with Rome. When Pope Pius VI denounced this move, the National Assembly retaliated, taking over papal territory and cutting off relations with Rome. In 1791, King Louis XVI spoke out against the National Assembly, protesting the civil constitution of the clergy, though he eventually agreed to it not long thereafter. Through the following year, violence increased in France. Mobs stormed the prisons, massacring the prisoners. In 1792, a French republic was declared, overthrowing King Louis XVI. He was found guilty of treason and executed by beheading at the guillotine. His wife, Queen Antoinette, died by execution the same way later that year. This began the Reign of Terror. Tens of thousands were killed in France as the country sought to erase its Catholic identity. In 1795, decrees were handed down, once again allowing Catholic Mass to be celebrated in France. In 1798, the French army under Napoleon Bonaparte occupied Rome. The Pope was taken prisoner and relocated first to Tuscany and then to the French city of Valence, where he later died. 7 months later, Pope Pius VII was elected Pope. Napoleon began negotiating with this new pope, leading to the signing of the Concordat. In this agreement, the Pope would recognize the Republic as the legitimate government of France, and Napoleon would recognize the Pope as the head of the Church in France. Finally, churches reopened throughout France, as did seminaries, schools, hospitals, and charitable institutions. In 1804, Pope Pius VII crowns Napoleon emperor. But 2 years later, the relationship sours when Napoleon asks the Pope to ally with him against Britain. When Pius refuses, Napoleon orders the occupation of Rome and the arrest of the Pope, where he remained prisoner until Napoleon's defeat in 1814. On May 24, 1814, Pope Pius VII returns to Rome. One of his first acts was restoring the Jesuit order to help him revive and rebuild the Church in a changed world. Thank you for your attention tonight, class, and have a great week.